So I'm here with a man who needs no introduction, but I'll give him one anyway, John Chambers, CEO of Cisco. Thanks so much for being here and talking to us today.
It's a pleasure, Steve.
John, we have just completed, really for light reading, and I think the industry as a whole, a historic test. It's not just the first independent evaluation and validation of a virtualization solution.
Yes.
It's Cisco's solution, the #1 communications vendor in the world. Why would you feel the need to take the chance of giving that solution to light reading, which is obviously fiercely independent, to do that kind of test and validation of it? Why would Cisco do that?
Well, if you watch, I'd much rather light reading do the testing and give us the very candid feedback what works and what's not, rather than our customers have to do it.
Right.
Secondly, we're kind of an outgrowth of the internet, and while we're a far from perfect company, far from perfect leader, we do try to the best of our ability always to be very transparent with our customers and partners and candid on what works and what does not.
Right.
And so we thought it was a great opportunity, candidly a win for you all and for us.
A huge win for
us.
us.
Back in a very positive way.
Yeah.
And even if it came back worst case, here's what you have to do better. I'd
Yeah.
rather know that now than put our customers in a no-win.
Yeah.
So it's the right thing to do. It's,
Yeah.
it's who we are. It's transparent. It's all about the internet.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, I bought light reading back about 2 years ago, and when I came back, the #1 thing that everybody said to me was, we're waiting for Cisco to take a really strong position on virtualization. And by gosh, you really did that at this show here in Barcelona. It's just been one announcement and proof point and customer win and demonstration after another. Were you saving it all up, or has a lot of things just happened in the last 6 months? Is the industry suddenly accelerating towards real-world service provider virtualization? What's going on?
I think it's indicative of the company transformation we've done over the last 3.5 years. If you watch what we did, we made a decision 3.5 years ago we had to reinvent ourselves.
Yeah.
There were a number of new market transitions from cloud to software to virtualization that were coming at us, and we made a decision that we're going to lead in those. Often that means you've got to disrupt yourself as well as the market,
Yes.
and when you first disrupt, Steve, you get a lot of criticism.
Right.
And so what you see today is a result of the last 3.5 years. And even of not just the engineering changes, where we have now 49 virtual network functions out, our nearest competitor has less than 10,
Yeah.
and we'll have 90
by the end of the year, yeah.
if we do our job right. It's the willingness to change and a culture of changing. If we don't reinvent ourselves, we'll get left behind. And just like I just told my service provider partners and enterprise customers, 40% of them won't exist in a meaningful way in a decade. If we're going to be the #1 IT player, we must change. So it's a nice way of saying you're seeing the results today of a 3.5 year effort, and especially the organization changes made 12 to 18 months ago, which Pankaj Patel led at engineering.
But how do you lead that personally, as the head of the company? What do you need to do personally? Because that's what a lot of the CEOs that I'm talking to around the communications industry are really struggling with right now. What did you do, John?
Well, I think this is true of any company in any direction. If you look at why a company fails, and therefore by definition what the CEO must do or must not do, #1 reason a company fails is they don't get market transitions. Nothing teaches you that like being at IBM during the mainframe era, Wang Laboratories during the mini-computer era. And what Cisco focuses on is market transitions. Once we see something moving to the internet, whether it's data, whether it's voice, whether it's consolidation of applications with the network, with security at scale in the data center, SDN, network function virtualization, we move. Secondly, don't stay doing the same thing too long.
Right.
That's like the service provider staying with the voice too long when
Yep.
we said 15 years ago it's going to be free. 90% of the revenue, but if they didn't transition over, they would have got left behind. Third thing is you build a culture, and it has to start at the top. Leaders, you can't stay in your job unless you reinvent yourself. You have to reinvent your organization structure, and you have to reinvent your own leaders. So building that deep into your DNA and then being customer driven, I think, is key. But again, that's something Cisco's done. The change, however, Steve, is what's been interesting. I used to have to do this every 5 to 7 years. Then every 3 to 5. I think the new world is every 3. It's the new norm.
Well, let's talk about how quickly the world is changing. I mean, light reading is reinventing itself. It used to be a telecommunications community.
Yes.
We're becoming a next generation communications community because so much of our audience now is public sector or utility or automotive or entertainment or OTT or Netflix. All of these companies are now reading us as well. You must see that. What's the future? I mean, you know, you're still divided along enterprise and service provider lines and lines of business. Is that going to go away? I mean, is the old telecom and enterprise market that we've lived with for 40 years, is that going to disappear? What's replacing it?
Well, I think they're going to actually transform. If you start with the most basic element going on in today's market, it's around every company, every city, every country becomes digital. As that occurs, it's about fast innovation. And that's enabled by fast IT, i.e. Cisco architectures, our ability to help be successful. Within that, it's around the Internet of Everything. That's where cloud is, that's where security, collaboration comes to play. And so if you watch what's going to occur, the reason we invested in service provider and enterprise, we felt they would come together over time. And that the service provider will provide part of the functions, the enterprise will provide other parts. The other correlation you just did, which is absolutely going to happen, every company will become a technology digital company. It doesn't matter if you're a Walmart in retail, a Bank of America in finance, a Deutsche Telekom from a service provider perspective, they're going to have to reinvent themselves. And that's what you saw here at this show. We've never done more product announcements in a shorter time period than we did this show. 12 major customers with major commitments in terms of directions. Cisco, we got a good shot at becoming the #1 IT player.
One of the things that you mentioned, which I thought was really interesting, was that you thought that potentially in the future your biggest competitor might be white label, not branded names, the ones that we know today. If that's the case, that's a different world altogether. How does Cisco compete in it when people can just go and get a white label solution and plug it in and potentially maybe be happy with it?
Well, I think the key is to realize that's just one more market transition. It's not one to be in fear of. And what customers really want is outcomes. So we said 4.5 years ago that our competitors in the future wouldn't be an HP, at that time IBM, they're now a partner, a Juniper or an Alcatel-Lucent. It would be white label. We felt standalone companies with just a router or just a switch or just a server that didn't architecturally pull them together would get left behind. That's now happening in the market. And we felt our long-term competitors would be a different business model. Bare metal, white label, just free software on top. We're going to compete against it with architectures, time to market, services, in a way that our peers, we don't think can keep up with us. And if you watch service providers, they're buying into that. Enterprise is as well.
Well, I think one of the things which came out of the demonstrations today with your customers was that they consider Cisco a strategic partner, giving them advice on what they should actually be deploying, not just providing, as you said in your first comments, it's not about routers anymore. It really isn't. It's about actually monetizing the capacity that we've provided. I know you're a very busy man. I've been very impressed by Cisco at this show, and as I said before, I'm not usually that impressed, so I've actually brought you a present. Don't get too excited, it's very small, but it is significant. It's a light reading pin, and I can tell you that that qualifies you for a free Heineken at any light reading event around the world.
So I'll come and get my free Heineken.
You can have it anytime on us, and actually we owe you more than one because you've really been very good to us, and we're extremely honored and excited about the opportunity to have conducted this historic test with you, John. Thank you for that.
Steve, it was a pleasure. Keep pushing us, and we're better because
we will do. Thank you so much, John. Thank you.